Alright, another draft physics video presentation. And, ooh, I think we'll stay on this two-slit thing. So maybe I should put the image back up. So I'll do that. Alright. Be right back. Alright, I'm back. It's always something. So again, we're talking about what is the cause of the phenomenon known as the two-slit experiment or slit experiments or whatever, and they're really surface experiments, as I've pointed out, and it can be pretty much demonstrated and proven and all of that stuff, and that's what I'm in the process of doing, is proving that their physics is garbage. It's just a bunch of wooey propagandizing fantasy science. And they really don't care about the truth and the evidence. They don't care about any kind of precision at all, except when it's to their advantage. They can argue with, very imprecise evidence that doesn't fit. Somebody else does it, they're all over them. The hypocrisy is obvious, the duplicity, and again, the truth is that they hate the truth. They don't want to hear it. They're little wooey etherists going way back. They have an archaic, primitive notion of reality, and they're just trying to shove it into reality, and they don't want to accept that now we figured out it's evolution, we figured out it's determinism, and your little wooey crap isn't really the truth. That's all that's going on here, because their passion is obviously, there's no explanation for it. Why are they so aggressive in defending very weak evidence and very unintuitive, nonsensical theory? Extraordinary claims. Why do they want the aliens to exist? And that's what they're doing. They're trying to force physics to match their fantasy rather than accept the evidence and recognize that they didn't do very good science when they decided it's been space. When they did their little wave particle mush. Okay, that wasn't good science. It was really bad science. They accept simple, stupid, vacuous answers. Dark energy, dark matter. They're naming particles based on, not even a fart of evidence. So anyway, it's just obvious. And so I'm pointing out the obvious, which should be obvious. What's at least obvious through some argument and whatnot. Alright, should be back. Sorry. On call and such. Anyway, so let's read some of this garbage from Skyraym again, and just rationalizations, excuses, bullshit. So he of course didn't acknowledge my direct questions to him and points to him and saying, well, you're not going to concede that 99% or let's just say 100% of every video on YouTube is describing the phenomenon inaccurately. That they're not accounting for the two patterns, and they're not using math that has any hope of getting the right answer because the point sources are in the wrong location. So, but he won't concede a fact that I can just demonstrate over and over and over again. All right, so, so he's dishonest as fuck. So what's the point of the conversation? Clearly he doesn't care about the truth. I mean, clearly doesn't care. And, there's nothing else that could be said. All right, do you at least agree that nobody needs any drawings? I mean, why would I agree to something this ludicrous? Architects shouldn't draw a drawing of the building. They should just give him the specs. Well, it's 40 feet this way and 60 feet that way, and if you take a vector from this 45 degrees to this angle, there's a window. That's how they should describe the house they're going to build? I mean, everything about physics is trying to create visualizations, okay, models. That's what the whole function is. It's not to sit there and find the most obtuse way to describe something, but to show it, to make it understandable. So why would I agree to something that idiotic? Topographical maps, we shouldn't bother drawing the little lines to make it visual. We shouldn't draw lines or arrays around charges to explain how they work. I mean, this is idiotic. We shouldn't bother doing this sprinkling of the iron filings around the magnet. Even though they misinterpret those filings, the point is the visualization does help understand the intensity. So what a pile of crap. Why would I agree to something that idiotic? All right. I mean, wind tunnels, you know, with smoke in them so we can see. I mean, it's just, you know, you can use every page that always uses illustrations. So why would I agree to something so freaking stupid? And here we have something so simple, 2 slits, and he's saying I can't draw you the force picture. I can't show you how the force moves through space and gets to the location. It's only 2 freaking little slits and he can't draw a picture of it. I mean, this is just such a stupid rationalization. All right, just the math. So, yeah, nobody does that on planet Earth. Nobody sits there and doesn't bother illustrating. Again, I can go back to every great scientist in history, and they drew a ton of illustrations. So again, just complete bullshit. Newton draw pictures all over the place. Just complete bullshit. All right, just the math to predict the patterns correctly. So of course I don't agree to that idiotic statement. All right, if not, there is no point. Yes, exactly. In continuing the debate. That's right. There's just no point. If you can't come even close, you can't draw something that only has 3 variables, 2 stinking little slits, and you can't draw how the force moves through them, when you know it has to be symmetrical. But the point is, you can't draw it because your theory is shit. That's the simple truth. And I'll show you. Well, no, you can draw it, actually. They draw it on your own fucking Wikipedia page. You lame piece of shit. Right here, they draw it right here. Okay, and here's the little inset right down here, right? So that's an enlargement. Guess what the point source is? The surface of the impediment. Right there, the surface. That's where the lines come right off of. That's where the math is establishing as the point sources. The surfaces, not the middle of the opening where the wave is supposed to be. Right on the surface, there's the inset showing you. That's what this math is all about. Okay, is sitting there locating the source of the deflected light at the surfaces right there. So this validates my theory entirely. Guess what? This frickin' whole page is basically telling you Gary's right. The integral points out that all they're doing is adding up where there's positive piling up of an on. So the on for the little tiny pattern for the furthest away slits, and then the on, and then the on, and the on, and the on. And the integral is just pointing out that all we're doing is telling you where they're all right on top of each other. On. And that's it. So, you know, this whole page is basically a validation of exactly what. See, this drawing is not. This isn't where they're establishing as the point source. They're just doing an averaging here because the real one is these 2 lines. And as you find out, as you go deeper into the page, okay, then you find, oh, see, right here they draw them coming right out of the middle. But then when they do the enlargement, oh, all of a sudden they're coming right off the surface. So it's right there in front of you, the facts. And here you are playing this stupid game. Okay. All right, your original claim was that the conventional model, that's right, the conventional model has 2 waves coming out, 2 symmetrical waves coming out of 2 openings, and there's no way that symmetrical circumstance can create an asymmetrical pattern, and that's what you have in the 2-slit. Can't happen. Do you believe it's possible? I can take a completely symmetrical system and create an asymmetry? All right, which includes the math, right? The math that validates my point, that the point sources are the surfaces, that there is no point source in the center of any wave. The wave isn't there. Okay. Doesn't predict the double slit pattern. What? Okay. Your original claim was that the conventional model, which includes the math, no, it doesn't include the math. So it's not on a single page. There's not a single conventional physics video on all of YouTube out of thousands and thousands of videos doing the 2-slit experiment. Not one of them is doing it your way. The way you're saying is the conventional way, using that page I just linked to. Not one of them that I can find. All right, so you're just a liar. I mean, pathetic liar. It's such an outrageous lie. So includes the math. No, it doesn't. It includes this stupid little crappy wave equation that doesn't account for any of the real pattern. So just horse shit. You're just spewing horse shit. All right, doesn't predict the double slit pattern, and I spent my time trying to show you that it does. So you didn't do that. You lied about what the math indicates. You lied that the math is somehow doing the two slit with the conventional notion of wave theory when there's no waves in it, as I pointed out. And I just showed you the diagram. Obviously, the point sources are the surfaces. So the math completely validates my theory, invalidates your theory. The wave theory is garbage by your own mathematics. Again, no waves on the entire page. I mean, I could go through these pages and you won't see a wave anywhere because they know it's vectors. They're lines. The math is illustrating the geometry. It's right there. The sine theta is being demonstrated where they got it from. It's the length difference in a line. That's what sine theta is. Okay. Oh, you're such a liar. All right. You can draw the interference for very slim slits. So again, he's here worried about how slim they are. Doesn't matter. We already know what's the controlling factor. We know the outside surfaces are controlling the little pattern, and the inside surfaces are controlling the bigger envelope. Period. End. We're done with worrying about, yes, we can vary it all kinds of ways. You know what you can also do that doesn't matter, and I noticed this when I played around with the experiment, that it actually really doesn't matter, if you make one of the slits, really small and one of the slits really big. So if I did this, if I created a two-slit pattern that was asymmetrical, it really doesn't matter because this distance is the distance that matters. So if I move these outside, if I moved, like say I put a wire in the center and I just move the wire over here, or I move the wire over here, it won't make much difference at all. Because the only difference that matters is the distance between the two sides of the wire and the distance here and here, and that's it. And the trick is, if you use a very thin impediment, guess what? You lose the envelope pattern. So when you have a normal size impediment, you get this. If you have a really, really small one, really small little wire, then you kill this pattern because this part gets so long. And so it ends up being just diffraction. And so the two-slit pattern, when you get the little light balls, they will just keep going like this, and you won't see the traditional break here and the break here. You won't see that anymore. Because if you make the impediment small enough, you get rid of the envelope, and now everything stays on. Facts. Don't let them get in your way, though. Just keep doing your proselytizing for religious woo. Okay. Well, let's see. So it's very slim slits compared to the wavelength. So again, the wavelength just has to do with where you see the light on the wall. Doesn't really have much to do with what's going through the slits. Anyway, where you approximate the slits to be infinitesimal width. So what does this mean? Infinitesimal. What does that even mean in physics terms? And you approximate them to be. No, they are as a physical fact. I mean, see, I could show. Well, maybe I'll show the Feynman clip. I mean, Feynman draws the. And the other guy did the same thing. These liars. They go, oh, look, it's the two-slit experiment, and hopefully you can see what I drew last time. I gotta remember this thing's in the way. So this is a good position, yeah. So they'll draw the two slits, and we know that the slits, right? That this whole distance is just a millimeter, right? Or maybe 1.5 millimeters. The whole distance of the experiment. And then they'll say, what happens when light goes through this slit? Well, it creates a pattern over here. Then what happens when light goes through this slit? Oh, it creates a pattern over here. That doesn't happen. This is a millimeter, okay? It's not projecting sideways. There's no diffraction in the pattern. So the two patterns would actually be so close to each other that you'd never, ever, 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 ever be able to see the difference. I mean, they'd be right on top of each other. So it's just all these frauds. are committed routinely. These fake notions of the actual physics. These are fake notions that, oh, one wave would be over here, one wave would be over here. Well, yeah, right, when there's a millimeter of difference. No, they would be 1 millimeter different. I mean, you people can't do even common physics correctly. All right. Where you approximate the slits to be infinitesimal width and end up having only 2 point sources. So it's basically just saying, no, you don't just have 2 point sources, you just have no envelope. But anyway, same difference. In that case, you don't get the pattern you are showing on the screen. Right, so if you have a very small impediment, okay, not a small slit, a small impediment, all right, you'll get, you won't get the envelope, and so therefore, like I said, the little dots will be continuous. They won't have those 2 breaks in them. But we know the breaks are really there. It's just that the break is so infinitesimal that it doesn't have an effect. The amount of diffraction, well, it's actually the spread. You can't make the pattern wide enough to actually see where the breaks are. The breaks move so far, you know, off the screen that you don't see them anymore because the pattern gets too weak by the time the break shows up. So you're not even accurate in your statement. You know, you still get the break. It's just too far out of viewability. Okay, 2 point sources. All right, so if your slits are greater than the wavelength, and you know, all this slit greater than wavelength crap doesn't mean a damn thing. The pattern shows up. If it's smaller, pattern's there. If it's bigger, it just has to do with the size. Nothing else. You can make it as small as you want. You can make it as big as you want, you know, theoretically. And there's no cutoff that says, oh, it has to be the size of the wavelength of the light. The wavelength of the light has nothing to do with it. When the light goes through there, it's going to get wiped out. And all you have is the phase and the frequency in the end where you can reconstruct photons. You can't change the frequency, but you clearly can change phases. All right, which is typically the case when you use light. All right, so again, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with it. So again, he's making a point as if this matters. If your slits are greater than the wavelength, it doesn't matter. We know I can make them as small as I want, or as big as I want, and the pattern will get proportionally wider. You know, the little bars will get fatter and fatter and fatter, or they get thinner and thinner and thinner. That's all that'll happen. Which is typically the case when you get light. Then you have to use the equation. The equation. He doesn't even have a name for his equation. So you have to use the equation that none of the videos talking about the two-slit experiment ever talk about. The equation Professor Lewin doesn't use, and the guy at Yale doesn't use, and the guy at Stanford doesn't use, and the guy at the other community college thing doesn't use. So all these people that don't use the right math, okay, you'll tell the professors how they're supposed to be doing it. And the reason why, again, I'll just say it, the reason why they're not using it is because it doesn't make any sense. It's not a wave anymore. The point sources are the edges of the slit, like I just pointed out. That's the only way they can make the math work, is they have to move the point source from the middle where the wave would be, and they have to put it on the edge of the slit, the surface, as I've been pointing out for 10 years. All right, I showed you. You didn't show shit. The equation I showed you, well, again, yes. But you haven't shown shit that that equation is in any way applied because they know it doesn't work. It only works for diffraction gradients because no one has to draw those. See, the trick is if I do the drawing of the diffraction gradient, right? See, I end up with such little tiny slits that, you know, they don't do this. Okay, they're really just all these little waves, and they don't have to do the. Well, they actually do draw it wrong. I mean, let's be honest. They actually do draw it as waves, implying, okay, that the pattern is being created, right? So let's just add some slits here and call it the diffraction gradient. Okay, so but we know this is it. This is what they're doing. This is A and B, and this is C and D, and this is E and F, and they just take these pairs. This pair creates the biggest. This pair creates a smaller pattern. this pair, okay, creates an even smaller pair. So I go even smaller lines in here. Okay, yeah, and that's all they're doing. They're just adding up those lines. So you should see the equation that has an integral in it, right? So the equation that takes all of the slits and adds them up. Okay, the equation that adds up the influence of the different distances, the contributions of the different distances. Okay, I showed you, because in that case you essentially have an infinite number of point sources on each slit. So this infinite thing doesn't mean anything to anybody rational, right? I know there's not an infinite number of anything in that slit. So that's baby talk, in my opinion. I mean, when physicists have to resort to there's an infinite number of something inside of something, they're already showing they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, right? Yeah. All is based on Huygens principle. So again, not applied consistency. So let's just go through it again. The big lie. Big fat juicy hairy disgusting lie. Okay, so the Huygens principle says you've got this, we'll open one slit, right? And by some magic they do this kind of reasoning. They say, well, you know, this mark, well, if I was to put a thing in the middle here, I could argue that this one cancels out with this one, and this one cancels out with this one, and this one cancels out with this one. Yeah, well, that's if you put an arbitrary mark in the middle. Why do I bother with that? Why wouldn't I just say this one cancels out with this one, and this one cancels out with this one? I cancel all of them out. But they put the one in the middle so they can force it to be an odd number and force there to be two waves. But this is what they say the Huygens principle does. It creates two waves inside the single slit. So a single wave comes in, two waves come out. That's their theory. And then when they get to the two slit, what do? No, let's just change the rules entirely. Huygens doesn't mean two waves come out here. No, one wave comes out of here, one wave comes out of here. So all of a sudden Huygens doesn't mean the same thing. I mean, the hypocrisy is just the duplicity of these lies. And this asshole is sitting here defending them. This asshole thinking he's got integrity as he's protecting intelligence from the terrible, brutish retard who's attacking his perfect and pristine and beautiful frickin' holy golden unicorn science. I mean, your science is such a fucking fake, lame piece of shit. All based on weak, terrible, awful evidence. And you just claim like you have the authority to argue this crap like this with these horrible distortions. Oh, the famous and wonderful Huygens principle that we never apply consistently. It only exists when we want it to. It only does what we want it to do. Just like our special dark matter. It only has gravity but doesn't have any other material functions. I mean, invisible man magic. Alright, all based on the Huygens principle. And I already linked pages where you can read the derivation. So again, that's basically just doing this crap of moving the point sources. And they're not even moving them accurately. I bet if you really did the single slit, really using the Huygens principle in the sense of using the principle, you'd find out that the real point sources aren't here and here, but really are this edge and this edge. And your math will work even better. So if they use the surfaces to decide where the pattern will be, it probably works even better. Alright, I know you don't like it. No, I don't like your fucking idiotic and inane description of it as claiming it's a wave theory when it's not a wave theory. Okay, they're clearly vectors, you know, shooting at angles. The whole mathematics is about an angle, determining the angle of the deflection at the point sources. So why are you lying about that? Anyway, but no physicist is claiming that this represents reality perfectly. First off, they're not using it. Secondly, what do you mean they're not claiming it? That's what's exactly what they're claiming. They're making all kinds of claims, really hard claims in these videos. These professors don't have any doubt. Professor Lewin calls the Young experiment nail in the coffin evidence of wave theory. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, amazing. It's really just a model to get decent results. So that's all physics needs. So if it seems like, it is like. So that's all they're doing. They're just that, and they say that's the real scientific method. If it seems like it is, then it is. Okay, beavers sort of look like porcupines, so yeah, same animal. Fuck. A drawing with infinite point sources is obviously impossible. Yeah, no, I'm not asking you to do that. You can summarize it, right? I mean, you know, if I make a little model of a Model A car, I don't have to have every little thing in there, do I? I don't have to have a working little clock in the dashboard or something, do I? No, I don't really need that to get the idea. All right, but you could get the pattern in your video approximately right by just having two slits with a lot of point sources. No, you can't. You won't get it right. All right, because it's really not a lot of point sources. There's really only 4. 2 slits, 4 point sources. Problem solved. All right. This is not practical on a board, but probably compatible with normal computer. So again, he thinks you need a computer to draw these waves. So everywhere they draw them, they're saying, oh no, you need a computer. So it's 2 waves. How the hell can I draw 2 waves? Right? I need a computer to throw 2 rocks into a river or a pond. I need a computer to throw 2 rocks into a pond and watch the waves lump over each other and create interference. Can't do it with just 2 rocks. No, you gotta use a computer to simulate the 2 rocks and make the 2 waves. I mean, this is such a pathetic weaseling out, you know, backsliding, rationalizing bullshit, excuse making on the most disgusting level of excuse making. I can't draw it. Yeah, you can, but you can't do it and make it make any fucking sense. All right, depending on how many sources you use. So this is all bullshit. And yes, I'm still talking about waves. Well, you can keep saying you're talking about them, yeah, and you're not drawing them. The mechanics are as simple as throwing 2 stones in a pond, and yet you can't draw it. That's all there is to the experiment. There's no magic. The 2 rocks in the pond are doing exactly the same thing the slits are doing. And the simple truth is, you know, in terms of mechanically creating 2 waves, that wave theory is just wrong. They aren't waves, idiot. They're surfaces. And light doesn't get slowed down, and light isn't a medium. See, this is all about them trying to force photons to be a medium, to the electric field to be some kind of sticky thing, like a bunch of water molecules stuck to each other, or like atmosphere being stuck to each other. They're trying to make it into a medium. And the fact is, it demonstrates it's not a medium. There is no medium for the propagation of light. Light travels in straight lines. Photons aren't stuck to each other. They're not gluey. None of those things are true, and none of the evidence indicates it's true. And lots of evidence demonstrates that it's not true, that it's gluey. But they want to believe it. Alright, if you had water waves with very small wavelengths compared to the slits, you would get a similar pattern. So that's just an absolute lie. No fact there at all. So complete horseshit he pulled out of his ass. He has absolutely no evidence of this horseshit. Okay, if you had water waves with a very small wavelength compared to the slits, I mean, obviously you can't have water waves that come into the slits that are too aggressive, that have more than one frequency in them. That's for sure. But again, it doesn't really matter on the speed. It doesn't matter the frequency of the waves as long as you don't have more than one frequency. Okay, you would get a similar pattern at far enough distance from the slit. So that statement right there, I'll just copy that and just say, where did you make that up? There's just absolutely no evidence that I could have water waves till the end of time doing this Okay, and you could have them going forever and ever and ever, and they will never create the double slit pattern. Ever, 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 no matter how far away I put that screen, it will never, ever, 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 ever happen. So you're full of shit. It would just be amplitude instead of intensity. So now we have something called amplitude instead of intensity. Yes, we know that water doesn't do little spots of light. It does up and down, or flat, or up and down, or flat. Okay, but the fact is you won't create the pattern. Fact that you are abusive of, that you're raping and pillaging. You're just, you don't care about the truth, clearly. If a professor ever claimed that you can get the pattern in the video by using only 2 point sources, 2 waves you mean, the case you can draw, then he is obviously wrong. So every single professor on this planet is wrong, because that's what every single professor is doing. And I don't know how you don't know that. How could you have any interest in the subject of 2 slits? You never watched any of them? Ever? Ever? No other videos on this subject you've ever watched? Because every single one of them does that. I'm asking you to show me a video where they get it right. Even Khan Academy can't get it right. Alright, but I would like to see that. So please link me to the video in question. There's no video in question. It's every single one. And I've already done that, okay, but I'm going to do it some more just for fun. But it's every single professor I've ever seen. Alright, no need for the response video, whatever that means. Also, a professor making a mistake, so they all are making a mistake, and that's not a mistake physics is making. No, your physics is really great. It's just every single one of your people who have a doctorate in the subject can't get a simple thing like 2 slits right. They can't figure out that a symmetrical system can't create asymmetry. No. You're all whores for fucking woo physics. That's the truth. You don't want the real answer. You want bent things and magical things and wooey things and entangled things. You're little UFO whores looking for some sort of excuse for the shit that the human condition is. You're looking for ways of justifying what a mess you've made of planet Earth. Alright, anyway. Mistake does not imply the entirety of modern physics is wrong. Well, I mean, it's a pretty good piece of evidence, right? If I could do that to aliens on some planet and demonstrate that every one of their professors is full of shit, that can't get it right, they can't say it right, they can't describe something as simple as 2 fucking slits accurately, well, I think that'd be pretty good evidence the fucking goddamn aliens aren't the place to go to find the truth, right? It'd be pretty good evidence to be kind of, I wouldn't let these guys make you dinner, There'd be lots of things you'd be kind of questioning, I don't think you'd take their advice readily. You'd be like a little suspicious. Well, if they can't figure out 2 fucking slits, what can I trust them to be able to do right? I think they're just writing cookbooks, right? I mean, I'd be kind of suspicious if aliens can't describe 2 fucking slits accurately. Alright, so let's do some of this. I mean, big news. Maybe I'll make it. I don't know. I'll probably have to make a separate video, but that's okay. I mean, this butthead, whatever he is. So these are also people. So let's just understand. These are people who are hanging out with the fucking superhuman dunce who obviously knows nothing about physics. So this is just more evidence of the credibility gap here. And they're playing this thing like, okay, physics Jesus thing. So they're just making fun, right? So what's the argument? If somebody actually does show up and they demonstrate your physics to be inaccurate, when let's say bent space is finally buried as a bad idea, you're going to call the guy who buried it the physics Jesus? You're going to do that? You're going to humiliate science altogether? Yeah, right. I mean, you're just such tacky losers. All right, so this asshole thinks he's going to make some kind of contribution, so this ought to be quite laughable. Part 2 in a series completely debunking in Mendham's physics. So there will be no debunking. There'll be no quotes taken from anything I've said and any demonstration that I'm wrong, especially about this whole two-slit thing. So no hope for this asshole. And yet he keeps playing the game. And this is guy, you know, that looks, let's understand, this is a malicious asshole who's invading my personal life, you know, and posted shit that he has no excuse for posting. I mean, he's basically dropping docs. So these people are desperate little attack whores, you know, little fucking attacky trolls. These are all micro-penised fat asses who, you know, are just resentful losers. And they got to play this disgusting kind of game. They can't win an honest argument. So this is what people who want to defend science do. They play little Photoshop games, right? Because they can't make a real argument. Oh, pathetic. Pathetic. You know, so bad. All right. So let's play some Feynman stuff. I think I have. Well, we'll do Lewin first. Show him Professor Lewin, you know, of MIT. Let's see, is that the right video or is it this one? I think it's that one. Let's go back a little bit. I think he has the drawings. Yeah, here he goes. No problem.
The blade, 2 lines have been drawn on it. And so I will draw these lines as white lines, but they're really openings. And there is another one here. And the separation between these lines, D, is 0.0. All
right, so let's go, let's see when he drew that part. Okay, so he was doing sound. So anyway, you see the image, okay? The two classic image, 2 waves, you know, somehow interfering with each other.
Which is completely black, but with a razor blade, 2 lines have been drawn on it. And so I will draw these lines as white lines, but they're really openings. And there is another one here. And the separation between these lines...
Okay, so this is a little bit funny, right? Because obviously the dimensions he uses are so bad in terms of trying to illustrate a good illustration of the two-slit. All right, so you see the lines right there. Okay, so he's just doing the traditional, like somehow these 2 waves pop out and they're creating the pattern through common interference lines, the common interference paths. So here it is, illustrate again, wrong.
D is 0.088 millimeters, less than 1/10 of a millimeter. When you look at them, you cannot even see that there are 2 lines. Our laser beam has a diameter of about 3 millimeters, which is 30 times larger than this distance. 30 times larger. So what I'm going to show you now that this is a laser beam is not to scale. The laser beam is much larger than that.
Yeah, well, it's probably not 30 times, so that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but whatever.
And so the light will go through some parts of these slots, as far as our laser beam reaches, and we are now capable of predicting when we're going to project it there. Here are the 2 slots, which are like so, and so you're going to get interference patterns in these directions, theta, and we can calculate what the position x is going to be there between the maxima.
Right, and they're going to calculate with not using your formula. So the formula they're going to use is the simple little two-slit formula, little bullshit formula that really isn't accurate at all. And certainly isn't accurate with the two-slit.
And so if that is the screen, and if this is x equals 0, and if this is x1, and this is x2, and of course the whole thing is symmetric, you can always go in the opposite direction.
Well, you did say the whole thing is symmetric, right? But well, we know it's not a symmetrical pattern, so wrong again.
You can now calculate, and you have all the tools. I did it for you in great detail.
I did. You have all the tools. I did it for you in great detail. No, you won't detail the actual pattern.
Using sound, but you have all the tools to do it now.
So, see, this is the comparison. See, they want you to believe that sound and light are the same thing, that water and light are the same thing, that mediums do the same thing that light does. That light is a medium. That's their focus. That's their underlying belief system. When there's no evidence that the medium, the electric field or magnetic field, that these fields have any of the gluiness of air molecules or water molecules. Those things are sticking to each other. They do move collectively. It doesn't work, okay, in, it's not the same for the little nuclear bits that are being affected when you're talking about light. Light isn't propagating through any gluey medium.
You know, G, I'm going to tell you what lambda is. 6,328 angstroms. And 1 angstrom is 10 to the minus 10 meters. So you can calculate all the direction theta, for which there are maxima and for which there are minima. Minima means light plus light is darkness. An amazing concept. And you can then, if you know the distance from here to the screen, which is capital L, you can calculate what the separation is as we see it on the screen.
So light plus light equals darkness. Well, what it means is, yes, there are broken photons and broken photons, but if they're out of phase, you won't see them. But you can put broken photon and broken photon together, and if they're in phase, the broken pieces, you will see it as a new photon.
And L is roughly 10 meters. Maybe 11, but that's not so important. And so I calculated, and you can confirm that, you should confirm that the angle theta 1, I will only calculate theta 1, which is the angle then to this point. Theta 0 is, of course, always 0, right? That's the easiest. I find that theta 1 is 0.41 degrees.
And we know all the angles are the same because the wavelength is the same. So the reoccurrence of where you're putting them back in phase again will always be the same distance. So this is no surprise. They make it sound like this is some difficult calculation. No, you're just saying how long, what's the path length difference between the two lines? And if it's a full wavelength path length difference, then you have some chance of putting a photon back together. If the path length difference of the two lines is not a full wavelength or close to it, then you're not going to be able to put the photon back together.
That is for maximum. And that means that x1, given the distance of 10 meters, then becomes 7.2 centimeters.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So from here to here on the screen, from maximum to maximum, will be about 7.2 centimeters. And from here to here will then, of course, also be about 7.2 centimeters. And in between, you will see darkness. The light from the two sources, 180 degrees out of phase.
So he said it, two sources, and the sources are defined by these lumpy little stupid waves. And those aren't the sources.
And that will give you darkness. Let me turn on the laser. And turn off the lights. Make sure I have my... Okay. And there you see it. There you see a maximum, darkness, a maximum, darkness, a maximum, darkness, and so...
Okay, and so on, right? So obviously you don't see what he just described, which is a dot every 3.4 degrees or whatever. Obviously that's not what you see, and obviously the pattern below is what the actual pattern will look like, and clearly it'll keep reoccurring with that break in it. That break, that asymmetrical break, will keep showing up again and again and again. And their math doesn't account for it, their theory doesn't account for it. It's not in their theory anywhere, and he just sloughed over. He just pretended this empty spot here wasn't an empty spot. He pretended there was light there, and there's no light there. So clearly just bullshit. Alright, so let's see if we can find another one. I think they might be on this side over here. Let's see what video this is. Alright, so this is Two-Slit Experiment. Now I could play this Al-Kahari one, and yeah, let's play it. Well, let's do this Feynman one first, right? Let's do Feynman first. I think it's Feynman. This is somebody else. Respect your intellect. Let's see which dopey guy this is. Oh dear.
Hey guys, I'm John, and welcome to Respect Your Intellect.
Yeah, well, you don't seem too intellectual, but whatever. It's just, can't go by appearances. But anyway, we're going to get the same dodge, right? We know what we're going to get. The same bullshit. So, you know.
Still a wave when it reaches the slits. This means that the wave is actually going through both slits at the same time. Once it's through the slits, it then diffracts and interferes with itself, forming peaks and troughs.
Right, now we know that's not what's happening, right? Because that won't create the asymmetrical pattern. So there's something else happening. It doesn't do that.
The final step in this example is the end screen, which is the interaction with the real world that counts as an observation and collapses the wave function. If you repeat this...
So this is all just bullshit, right? This is all just bullshit. Wave functions, all of this crap, that's all made up crap. There's no evidence of that in the pattern. There's no reason you have to believe in a wave function.
This many times, you eventually see the interference pattern re-emerge, showing that the photon was in fact a wave that went through both slits at the same time.
Alright, so he's showing the electron. You know, this is obviously probably an electron pattern, but look, he's saying this is the two-slit experiment. We know that's not the two-slit experiment. So again, shown wrong. You know, if I played this on, he's just going to do this trivial math. He's not going to do your math anywhere in here. So again, another trivial, wrong explanation. So here's Feynman doing the same crap.
But we can find out by close.
Alright, so Feynman shows the two slits and he says, look, one of them makes a hump over here. Look, one of them makes a hump over here. Right? So we got the same bullshit dodge, right? That somehow this makes humps that are, you know, way far apart from each other when the slits are a millimeter away from each other. So 1 millimeter difference somehow on the screen adds up to, you know, a foot. That wouldn't happen. The two little patterns would be right on top of each other. The one slit would produce a hump that's 1 millimeter skewed from the other hump. So that's bullshit. And then we can see he just draws the squiggly lines here. He doesn't have any break in the pattern. So no concession to the actual phenomenon. No reality here at all.
This, for instance, to find I1. The intention is to get here. If the whole...
So there's the drawing. There's no break in the drawing. No indication of the real asymmetry. He just keeps drawing it as if it's symmetrical. And again, draws this totally wrong. It would never happen that way. These two patterns, these two humps would be 1 millimeter away from each other. So just more lies and garbage and nonsense. No reality involved. Ah, that's me. Alright, so let's go back to this Google page. So let's play this one. You know, this, he makes it into, oh, this is the most mysterious thing in the history of mankind, this magical two-slit experiment, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, you know, professor, speaking at, okay, let's understand, he's at the Royal Institution. He's at the place where Faraday and Newton and all those people presented their physics.
Is gently just observe which slit it goes through. So you put a detector.
All right, so never happened, right? The detector experiment he's talking about there, right? So just, you know, the canard is just so, you know, it's just so pervasive. So here he goes. Here's the pattern.
Say, well, you know, maybe atoms behave in a very...
Right, so no acknowledgement of the real pattern, just more lines again. Oh, it's just lines, no breaks, no concession to the real two-slit experiment at all. So, you know, we can just go over this crap over and over, and it's the same bullshit over and over again. They just, here he is again, showing them misaligning, right? He's going to show, well, one makes a hump here, and the other one makes a hump way over here. More garbage. Has nothing to do with the reality. You know, let's talk about electrons the same way we talk about photons. Let's pretend they're not a completely different pattern. Anyway, so you know, what's the argument here? You're going to say this isn't inappropriate or wrong or terrible, that the whole subject is being abused this way, a bunch of things are being confused with each other, electrons are the same as protons. No, they're not. They create completely different pattern. One of them does gradually go on and off, the other one doesn't gradually do anything like that. One has shape, the other one doesn't have shape. I mean, lots of things are different, but let's ignore all of those differences, because those differences indicate your theory is wrong and you just don't want to hear it. You know, just as people after Benjamin Franklin called it plus and minus and got it wrong, you know, the scientists saying, hey, you know, something's wrong here. It just doesn't work with this plus and minus thing this way. And they just the resistance from the Borg wouldn't allow anything to change. We can't change what the truth is, because we've already established what it is. We decided in 1930 this is the truth, and we're just going to keep running with it, and we're just going to ignore the fact that it doesn't really work. It isn't a good explanation. It's just crap. It doesn't fit the evidence, so we're going to force the evidence to look like what we want it to. So this is all this is. They're just forcing it to look the way they need it to look. And that's all this crap is. So I could do this guy. He's got it. Same bullshit. Oh, there it is again. 2 waves. Right? You just saw it, right? In a little micro playing of the video. Here, let's do it again. There it is. The same 2-wave horse shit. Okay, this is electrons. This is the Dr. Quantum video. Complete crap. Okay, no discussion of the 2 waves at all. So I can just go through all of these videos, and we're not going to go, here it is again, 2 slits doing the same thing as, same horseshit, 1 pattern all the way down, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. No acknowledgement of the 2 patterns at all. And that's the guy, that's Michael Van Briesen. He doesn't bother with the real thing. This one's just a demonstration, so that means nothing, because he's not going to tell you what's causing it. So that's not going to be any good. There's Feynman again. There's this guy at the Royal Institution, does the same horse shit. Actually does with a single photon at a time. But we know that's a canard, right? Because there's no such thing as a single photon gun. And what would be interesting is that if they first, this is another, probably for the experiment video. I'll have to move it to the experiment video. So I'll have to add this some future video, but I thought of the way they do the single photon thing, right? So they usually, to do a single photon, they just have a light source, usually put a screen in its way, an impediment that blocks most of the photons, so only one squiggles out now and then. And what they have to do is put a photographic film and adjust this plate so that they really do get very few photons. Like it takes a week for them to get enough photons to hit the plate. And then when they know how many photons are going through, then put the 2 slits in there. And what you'll find is you'll get no pattern. Because when you have enough light to hit this solid wall without any slits in the way, you'll realize how many photons are actually being broken by the slits, and that you won't have enough photons to have a pattern. So you have to increase this intensity quite a bit before, so it's obviously more than 1 photon at a time, but you have to increase the intensity enough, but you have to get more than 1 photon in here at a time. And if you don't, you're not going to get any pattern. But anyway, so it just goes on and on here. Same drawing right here. 2 slits, 2 waves, blah, blah, blah. Here we go, the Veritasium, same horse shit. Doing the Young experiment, which demonstrates absolutely nothing. And demonstrating it is just, look, it's like 2 balls in water, right? And there's the pattern. It's not the 2-slit pattern. The dopey guy just said that if I let that pattern go on and on and on, somehow it's going to create the 2 patterns. It's going to create the break somehow. No, there's no evidence it will. That's garbage. So he claims, I'm some kind of kook because I'm pointing out how not any of these descriptions are correct. So another demonstration, really nice image there. But, the demonstration won't be doing the math, won't be doing any of the, it's only a 2-minute video. So they're not going to theorize on what's producing that obvious, huge, gigantic, glaring break, glaring break, glaring break, glaring break. They just ignore it. Their math doesn't account for it at all. Forget it. Not important. That's the facts. All right, here's the guy at Yale. All right, let's play that. Okay, this image is better. Same thing, right? 2 waves. You see them right there. You see the 2 waves in the image. 2 waves interfering with each other. Drawn. Wrong. Right? Can't possibly create the pattern. Those 2 waves can't do it. Alright, so let's just keep pretending. Here it is again. Same bullshit. 2 waves. Pattern, no breaks. Young's double slit. That's so this is Khan Academy, right? Or whatever it is. Yeah, that's Khan Academy. Playing the same bullshit game. So I'm wrong because you say this isn't really happening. This isn't really the internet. Okay, I'm faking the internet now. I'm showing a fake internet by pointing out every single physicist cheats the argument, cheats it, and cheats it dramatically. It's a dramatic cheat. And here it is right in front of you. You say this is fake. I fake these results. This isn't really what the internet produces. This isn't really what's on YouTube. The ones that really have 1 million views. I mean, the Dr. Quantum videos have millions of views. They're in numerous locations all over the internet. Millions of views for a wacky theory that thinks we have to look at the moon or the moon isn't there. I mean, it goes so much further than just this fake two-wave nonsense. It takes it all kinds of steps further, where we put detectors on, and if we try to detect, the photons know we're trying to look at them and they don't like it and they run away. This is the woo physics they're selling, and you're pretending I don't have a legitimate argument? My gripe is bullshit? Yeah, fuck you. Fuck you, defender of this tripe and crap, these lies of science. Why are you defending these overt deceptions? You piece of shit. Yeah, so that's it. That's enough. Alright. So, we will probably do another video when the brilliant whatever crap video finally premieres, because then, you know, the weasel has to make it a premiere. Okay, the dock dropping loser, you know, the micro penis sucking asswipe. You know, it's just, what a piece of shit as a human being. Alright, anyway. So, yeah, we have to wait another, it's not saying anymore. I guess it'll say in the video. 49 minutes. Yeah, well, I'm not going to wait for that. My computer is not reliable enough for that. And this is probably I already made the point, so you know, no need to go any further. They're liars and cheaters and thieves, and that's it. Propagandists. They're just fanatics for a religious theory, and they don't like facts and the truth.